one company cannot be expert in all areas. So the future is also to hook arms, to partner up.
They kind of slide in and out of digital and physical worlds a lot easier than you and I do. Attention as a currency, because you know that you can spend 30 seconds looking at an ad that will give you maybe another whatever life in this game that you play. I was in the US giving a talk at this like academic/practitioner conference like 5 years ago when I was still at H&M. And then I kind of opened with my son, who was then like 9 or 10, the youngest, who played Fortnite. And he spent more money and much more focus on his Fortnite skin than he did on his like physical appearance. He cared more about what he was then dressed like or did, or whatever Fortnite dance he was doing in the game some years ago than he did his physical appearance. I think that was really, really interesting just for us then to reflect on, because you also in the report you did like it's the Web3 metaverse, lots of things there and NFTs and stuff that come in. And I think it's really interesting too, when that will be more of a normal thing, when people will move in and out of their like physical or digital avatars in different meetings and different settings, and where that will then kind of stabilize. So I guess it will be up and down for a while. NFTs will be the shit, and then NFTs will not be the shit for a while, and then we will somehow end up with some kind of a digital layer that will be normal. That's us.
Interesting. But I think the idea that our youngsters are like ninjas in the new world and trying out new things, that's really interesting, because I mean, to understand how they navigate and how they find new spaces in the digital world, it's really exciting. And also what you're saying, that my son, he think that, well, candy, that's nice, but I really want Roblox money. That's a greater value.
I think it's really interesting too. Also when you talk about, but that's another podcast, I guess, but when it comes to money and currency, because kids now, they've never seen physical money. And then, as you say, to them, Swedish krona is one currency. And you have Roblox money, you have whatever things, you have almost attention as a currency, because you know that you can spend 30 seconds looking at an ad that will give you maybe another whatever life in this game that you play, or will give you credits, or will do something. So all of these different currencies, I think, will be very interesting also to explore going forward.
Yeah, and enhance your experience, because that's really what it's about for the Gen Z and Alpha.
Welcome to the Next Gen Retail Pod, hosted by the Next Gen Retail Hub. We're a few companies sitting here in Stockholm, all of us working more or less with retail brands and retail trends and retail context. We're very curious, so this podcast is where we kind of try to invite interesting guests, discuss interesting things that are on top of people's minds in retail. And today I'm very privileged to have Thorén here from the Nexer Group, and we will really be able to dig into like retail trends and tech stuff, because you just released a report, a radical retail report, and I listened to your the release pod, or the release talk yesterday.
Webinar,
webinar. There are lots of really, really interesting things that we should dig into, and I think it's extra fun to have you here, because since we worked together, like we just concluded that it was a very long time ago, like 10, 12 years ago at H&M. And reconnected when I was also invited to be on the advisory board for this report. So it's a lot of fun to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And we're just going to jump right into it. And I'm just going to start asking you about like a favorite brand or favorite retailer, just to start this off.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are a lot, but if I choose one, I would choose Polen and Pyret. They have sustainable garments. They are supposed to last very long, And now they actually put 3 names in the tags in their garments. That's a statement that I think is really crucial, because we are over-consuming and overproducing in retail today. We need to stop that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that are also in the report, is one of the most important things, most important challenges and developments in general. But tell me a little bit more about like Nexer and Kairos Future and the reports and what you want to create with what you do.
Yes, so Nexer Group is a tech consultancy company working with tech, communication and strategy. And we acquired parts of Kairos Future a few years ago, working close to them with future trends and in a more long perspective, so to say. So we are able to support companies in the trend area as well as in the actual execution area, in order to make sure that the trends and the opportunities out there are implemented for real. So that's Nexer and Kairos Future. And the report, I mean, we are a consultancy company, and to us it's crucial to understand what are the trends, what are the technologies, and what are actually the opportunities and struggles for our companies out there. What do they need to address? So we want to share the information with customers and the society in total, because a lot of things needs to be highlighted with our insights, and I think that we can contribute in the society.
And I think that this is the most fun thing, of course, that there is to try to understand a little bit of what's going to happen, and especially why. What is it in society and in people that will actually move us in one direction or another? And that is, of course, accelerated so much by all the possibilities that tech is using, that globalization is using, or adding to everything that we're exposed to. Now there are lots of cool things that are happening. Okay, but then if we start looking a little bit more into the report, there are lots. So they're both like big retail trends and retail technologies, and also looking at new like business models and things. But if you want to highlight like 1 or 2 things that this is, if someone just tuned into the pod and then just have a minute or so, what is the message? What are the most important things?
I would say we launched a report last year as well. And one area that has exploded is the AI area. And actually to take control of that area as a company to make sure that you use it in a good way and you also have control of it. So that's one area. And the other area I would say is the cookie death and the GDPR regulations. Gartner stated that 75% of the population in the world will be regulated by those kind of regulations. 75% of the population. So that's a lot already next year.
Yeah, and it's I think that's also really interesting with all the data. And you have maybe we could start with that. You have like the great data chaos as one of the trends that is basically looking into data, and I guess both collection and then privacy stuff. And is there anything else that you want to highlight? Why is that qualifying as a key trend? Well,
you are into insights as well, Jan, so you know why. But I mean, just to state that, I mean, data is today shared by a lot of companies, and you are not really able to control your own data as a consumer. But ahead, this is the future. So big retailers and platforms will need to adapt to that new world, and the consumers are owners of their own data.
Yeah, and that, as you say, I work a lot with this, also trying to understand how do you rework cross continents with different regulations and cross channels where there are different opportunities. And we had a little bit of a chat before, but looking at then digital versus physical retail channels and the data opportunities that we have today, but also that will come.
I mean, in the online world, you're able to measure a lot. Too much, perhaps. And I think that CEOs and salespeople out there, they are very focused on conversions and sales, but they are missing the actual consumer, their feelings, their actual personalized experience in the online world. But that's also true to some extent in the physical world, because a lot of companies are reducing staff, for example, and in the physical world, it's the staff that actually do a lot of the experience in the physical store.
Yeah, I think that is interesting to see that maybe in the digital world there's been a lot of data, lots of transactional data, lots of behavioral data focused on transaction and making sure that you sell as much as possible. And it's been relatively cheap to buy traffic. That's not going to keep on being cheap. It's not going to be possible in the same way. But I talk about it a lot at least. But that online or digital retail is a lot about the experience, as you say also. And physical retail has not had the chance to measure as much, but will be able to start measuring a lot more also. So I think that these channels will probably come together a bit more, which is good since it from a consumer perspective doesn't matter what channel you're in. So you need to treat the consumer similarly.
Yes.
Since it's part of the same journey.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting trend as well, where niche is the new norm. We talk about that in the report as well, and the Gen Z, they are not finding it suitable to move on to the new big platforms. They want to have their specialized, trustworthy community, and this is true both in the digital world and in the physical world. So this is, as a brand, you need to do other things than drive conversion in order to, have a unique position to attract your customers.
Yeah, and I think that's tapping into the mytopian trend that you are also talking about. That is a lot about communities, and really I would want to interpret it as like authentic, real communities. So it's not based on a CRM system and a loyalty program sent out by a big brand where you get points and then you can consume and get a 20% discount every week. But it's really about being and tapping into people's values and really being part of a community, and where I believe that these communities will have a lot more power going forward in the whole retail network.
Yes, I think so. And as a brand, you need to, come down to your true values. What are your standpoint in different areas, in sustainability, in other areas as well? I think it's crucial to really be able to attract the consumers and tap into the communities, because the communities will not allow brands to destroy that.
No, and I think also that some of these communities will basically become producers. They will start creating their own value chains and their own products, and maybe reach out then to manufacturers or something that will then help them reach the goals. But the demand will then come from communities, and they will based on values and who they are, really who they are and want to be. Yeah,
and I mean, as a brand, you need to try things, because you might not know where your current or future customers are in the digital world. For example, Tommy Hilfiger, they entered the Roblox metaverse platform, and they elaborated on what are the consumers, what do they like, and they, together with the users, actually created a retail fashion collection so successful, but you're not able to use your old knowledge into the new metaverse world. You need to adapt.
Yeah, and I think that what you touch upon here, being authentic and being transparent and daring to test and being curious, I think that's going to be even more important and central going forward, where this authenticity is going to be paramount. And leaping into the regenerative and the sustainability trend, I think that this is something that is going to be very, very important to be able to reach then consumers and in a true authentic way, and being transparent that everyone cannot do everything, but we need to take steps within that area.
Mm-hmm. Everybody can do something, but perhaps not everything. I think there are good examples. There are companies putting sustainability on the board, for example, having a vote in that sense. And I mean, what is produced in all companies should be used as long as possible, because all remake and stuff like that, it also has an impact on the environment. So that's also crucial. And here there are some infrastructure, I would say, that are missing today, both for the retailers in order to actually make sure that the garments or products are really recycled or reused or whatever in the circular environment. But one thing that everybody can actually do is to think about their business model and to think about how they can make sure that the products and services are able to be used several times. That's something that everybody can do.
Yeah, and I think that that's important when you talk about returns, for example, in like fashion retail, which is something that is always being discussed a lot. I think that there is a joint responsibility there, where companies can, of course, then discuss business models, but make sure that it's easy to return, but it's easy to use. It's easy to know what you buy so you don't return as much, and easy to resell and get into this whole circular networks. I think it is a collaboration connecting almost to the community, where you need to work together and help out. Yeah. And there I think also a lot of the tech development will help. It
will. And I read this morning from Svensk Handel. There's a discussion now to make regulations regarding free return rates and stuff like that. And the Swedish retailers are afraid that the international companies will run them over. And there's infrastructure and regulations needed on a higher level in order to actually make this happen.
To me, I think that we need to give consumers incentives to return fast if you need to return. So that there is maybe stepwise cost, or making it easy to return fast, because that means that it can be sold again.
Yeah.
It can be used again. There is a higher possibility that it's actually something that can come into the whole flow again. So, because if you look at garments, the worst garment from a sustainability perspective is basically the one that is never used. That someone buys and just stays non-used. So if we can increase the use of garments by speeding up returns, minimizing returns, speeding up returns, and then helping people to use and to work with it, I think that would help out a bit.
Returns is a very important area, and I think that it's important for retailers to not look upon returns as a separate thing. It needs to be included in your business, because it's part of your customer experience, and also to enlighten the customers of what garments they are actually buying. Because that's an area I think also is interesting to talk about, is the measurements. For TVs and furniture, it's easy because you have the measurements, but in garments it's not one measurement strategy for all companies. This makes it hard for consumers as well to actually buy the right garment or shoe for that.
Yeah, definitely. We both we worked quite some years in fashion, both of us. So this is something that lies close to our hearts, I guess. But another trend that I think is important, we touched upon it a little bit, but it's what you call the phygital trend, which I think is a word that is starting to be used more and more. It was very difficult to pronounce it for me the first times I said it. It kind of got stuck with me, but now I think I can say it right. Phygital. What does that mean then for you and for the consumer, I guess, or for retailers?
It's the fact that the physical world is, well, they are moving together to some extent, the digital world and the physical world. But the worlds, they have their own, uniqueness. So you need to operate and develop them in their context, so to say. But what you see is really the online measurements and how you operate an online business is moving more and more into the physical world. As you said, that there are more data in the physical world ahead, so you're able to look upon it as a digital store to some extent. But what we see also is, for example, social shopping. That's also something that the Gen Z is very used to shopping that way. And this is, we think about the Gen Z, they will soon be working in purchase departments around the world and so on. They are used to different shopping experience. And now we're mostly talking about business to consumer. But this is also applicable for business to business, because you need to be relevant to the ones that you are selling your products and services to. So it's a behavior, actually, both on a physical level, but also on a behavior and human level.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that we start to get into this and start talking a little bit more about the whole customer journey, the whole customer experience that is then channel agnostic, touchpoint agnostic, and where you need to understand the behavior of people, then B2B or B2C or C2C or C2B2C or whatever, and then roll with that, just as it has been, I guess, forever, in a way. That you need the business fundamentals, the understanding of the customer and their behavior will be paramount also going forward. And you cannot just survive with buying lots of traffic and then sit and hope for conversion. No. When it comes then to the technologies, we've touched upon some of it, and that it's technologically accelerated basically everything that is happening now. But is there something that we've missed to bring up that you think is important?
Well, in the radical area, basically where you gear up the retail operations, we see the autonomous deliveries and more data-driven and algorithmic power in that sense. That's one area that we see coming a lot.
Yeah, because of course there's lots of things that are not customer facing, but that will speed up and make it more efficient, and I guess also drive the possibility to be more sustainable. Yeah. To be smarter in deliveries and smarter in operations, and maybe smarter in pricing, which means that you might not need to reduce as much and overproduce as much if you find the right price then for things both physically and digitally, I guess then. Yeah.
And one area I think it's interesting to elaborate on is the NFT and blockchain area. How mature retailers are to really take on that area, because I think there are a lot of usage areas in this sense, because NFTs and blockchain, they can remember a lot of data during the product's life cycle. And this could be used in many ways. For example, to make sure that the garment knows how much sustainable footprint, for example, it has. Or you can upload your wardrobe in order to understand your second round value to sell some of your garments as a peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of areas to elaborate on, but I'm not sure how mature retailers are to take this discussion. What's your experience, John?
I think that it is, I guess that before like the last months when we've just talked about ChatGPT and AI, there were lots of talks about then NFTs and the digital layer and digital products and lots of brands then had their digital little NFTs that were sold everywhere. But I think that there is a need, as you say, for a maturity. It will probably go up and down for a little while before it kind of stabilizes and we find some practical use cases that will be then possible to capitalize on for this regular retailers that might not be extreme tech and that can really be very, very advanced, and not the ones that are not at all advanced, but that some might add a digital layer, as you say, to add information, so it's easier than for all stakeholders to know about the whole production chain and also the use chain. But it's interesting to see how like blockchain and NFTs and all that technology will develop, and what, as I said, what like practical use cases can come out of it.
Yes, because I mean, RFID is commonly used within retail, but the next step in order to use NFTs and those kind of technologies, I think it's we need to elaborate on that, because that's the future.
Definitely, and for Gen Alpha and Gen Z, it's also natural to have digital, I guess, assets, possessions, layers to different avatars or to different filters or different products, and they kind of slide in and out of digital and physical worlds a lot easier than you and I do, actually.
Yes. It's
even
good
if we kind of feel young at heart, but some things we've kind of missed out on, I guess.
Yeah, but it's good to have them, though, to our ninjas, in order to understand and elaborate on the new internet, because the internet that we know, that's been used for 15 years, it will change ahead, and we will need to manage, John, as well in the future.
Yes.
So stay tuned, like and subscribe. That's the guidance I get from my Alpha 6-year-old.
Yeah. Now everyone would need like a couple of Gen Alpha as like a board to kind of bounce our own thoughts around to kind of understand if we're on top of the trends as much as we should, and if we interpret things the way we should, so we don't end up just old dinosaurs reading paper newspapers, which is not a bad thing, but anyway, might not be what everyone will do in the future.
No.
Let's see if there's something that we missed in the report or outside when it comes to interesting things. We talked about the regenerative retail, the importance and what's going on in the sustainability world, and the need to be authentic and transparent, and to explore the new business models within this area. And there are a lot of
there
opportunities.
Are some guidance in the report, because, and also I think one thing that is truly important is that one company cannot be expert in all areas. So the future is also to hook arms, to partner up. There are companies that are using other companies' operations, for example. Why not? That's super. So there are a lot of examples how to really hook arms and use technology in order to really understand, and data, of course, where we're at today and what are the low-hanging fruits. How can you contribute?
Yeah, and I think that as you say, when it comes to communities, that will be extremely important, and for consumers need to be authentic, and you'll find your own little community that might not be only Facebook. That will be the same then for businesses, to try to find your community. How can you complement? Where do you need to operate, and how can you work together with others to make sure that you stay on top of these things and kind of tackle the challenges that we're all in. And I also want to stress that I basically always do when it comes to measurement and being curious and trying to set up a way to try to evaluate what's going on, not just to bet on something and sit and wait and hope for it. And there is so much data, so you can do it. And I think that's an important advice. So do not try to do everything. Partner up and make sure that you're curious and measure. Yeah,
that's a good statement, I would say.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for coming and sharing your the ideas of the report and your thoughts around what's going to happen. And let's stay in touch and see if we can reconnect then and see what of our speculations actually came true.
I would love to. Thank you for having me.
Bye bye.